Welcome to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesar Sportsbook. I'm Katie Mox, and coming up on today's show, Jimmy G is staying in San Francisco. We'll take a look at some overs and unders of the season and give you our takes. And of course, I will give you my Mox Locks. But first, let's welcome in our friend, Kenny Vetsvig. Kenny, how's it going? Happy Wednesday.
Hey, happy Wednesday. Not too bad. So I don't know if you saw, Katie, I started doing this thing called Cap Wars. Did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah,
And you've been winning, I've seen.
Yeah. So I had my first victory over the weekend. It's just something that started on Instagram. It's where all the handicappers, we kind of came together and just going head to head, putting our money up. So far I'm 1-0. I'm in my second competition right now. So wish me luck.
Yeah, very good. Well, luck you don't need because I feel like you always win everything, but that is very exciting. All right, Kenny, let's get into the show and let's start things off with the Mox Thought. In a surprising twist, Jimmy G is staying in San Francisco. It was reported on Monday that the 49ers and Garoppolo are finalizing a new contract that will make him the highest paid backup quarterback in the NFL. Garoppolo's new deal is worth $6.5 million, fully guaranteed, with incentives that can push it close to $16 million. Garoppolo's contract also includes a no trade clause and a no franchise tag clause, giving the quarterback full control. So what are my thoughts as a Niners fan? Well, I'm happy. Y'all know that I'm the biggest Jimmy G fan that there is. But also, this can't be seen as anything but good for the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo has a 31-14 record as a starter with the Niners in his career. He had the shoulder surgery, which kept him out from getting picked up from other teams. But there's no way that the Niners were going to release him and have him walk on over to the Seahawks, their biggest rival in the NFC West. So I think this makes sense for Jimmy because Jimmy doesn't want to go to a crap team. That's why he's got the no trade clause. And I think it's good for the Niners because heaven forbid, if Trey Lance goes down, I don't think that this means that they don't have faith in Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance is still going to be the starter. But if something happens, then you have someone like Jimmy Garoppolo, who again, 31-14 record with the Niners as a starter. We talked about the incentives a little bit. I actually think that this is good for the Niners in terms of their cap space as well. He's got that base salary of $6.5 million. And then his per game roster bonuses, he gets $500,000 for playtime, per game, playtime incentives, Playtime incentives, $8.45 million, not likely to be earned, and the salary cap hit is $8.94 million. It's still less than Trey Lance's salary, which I do think is important for the team. It's also important for Trey to give him that confidence. But again, I think this is great for the Niners. I am very, very happy because, as we've seen in the past, when your QB1 goes down like Jimmy Garoppolo, your season is toast. The Niners are ready to win right now. Having two viable quarterbacks is a very good thing for my Niners. Kenny, what do you think?
Katie, what's the one thing I always say to you? When you got two quarterbacks, you got
none. But last year we had two quarterbacks who made it all the way to the NFC Championship game, Kenny.
Right. But this year is a little different, right? Because let's just say, right, Trey Lance starts 0-2, 0-3. Imagine the pressure that's going to be on Trey Lance's shoulders, knowing that Jimmy Garoppolo.
Imagine the pressure that was on Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulder. This is the argument that bothers me, Kenny, because everyone keeps saying like, "Oh, it's gonna stress out Trey Lance." What do you think they did to Jimmy last year? And look what happened to him. I do think the competition makes everybody stronger. And if Trey Lance really, that's maybe his new nickname, Trey Lance is that guy, then a little bit of pressure shouldn't be anything for him.
Yeah, I mean, but again, is he that guy? That's the thing, right? Jimmy Garoppolo, we know he's a proven commodity in the NFL. When he was with the Patriots, he won. They traded him to the Niners. He wins there. So we know Jimmy Garoppolo can get it done at the NFL level. We have no idea what Trey Lance can do. He looks good. The arm looks good. There's the stories coming out of the training camp sound great. But when you're in game time, real speed, things are different. So, I mean, yeah, I guess in a sense, it's not a bad thing because, if Trey Lance does go down, you have Jimmy Garoppolo to back him up. But at the same time, you have a young quarterback. He was a rookie last year, but he didn't really play much. So this is his first true season as an NFL quarterback. And it's just a lot of pressure for a young kid to have, a guy that was a couple bad plays away from taking them to a Super Bowl, which they probably would have beat the Bengals had they advanced to that Super Bowl. So it's just a lot of pressure.
Yeah, Tart gets that interception. We're talking about an entirely. But then I wonder, like, what could have Jimmy done, right? Do you think if he made it to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl, would they have kept him another year? I don't know that there's anything Jimmy could have done to have stayed to be QB1 once they made that decision for Lance, because you would think making it to the NFC Championship game, and like you said, just a couple bad plays away that weren't necessarily all his fault. We could have been, I mean, obviously I'm wishful thinking here, but we could have been Super Bowl champions.
No, yeah,
We
I
Niners
think
fans.
I think if the Niners won the Super Bowl, Jimmy's job would have been secure, right? Because how do you bench a guy that just won you a Super Bowl? You can't do that.
How do you bench a guy that got you all the way to the NFC Championship game? I mean, I don't know. That's neither here nor there. I did go on a tangent earlier, but the Niners are saving nearly 17 million in cap space. I know there was a lot of talk about how keeping Jimmy would just totally ruin the cap space, and it's not. They're fine. They have the fifth most cap space in the NFL at 21.3 million per over the cap. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Obviously, I think don't be surprised if you see Jimmy G play this season, whether that is Lance isn't there yet or he gets injured. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as future value, it was a smart move by the Niners. Like you said, the last thing you want is Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Seahawks or another NFC rival that could potentially knock you out down the road. And then you don't want to just let him walk for nothing, because we all know the quarterback is the most valuable position in the NFL. So if you keep him this year, maybe Brady retires next year and the Bucks come calling and they want him, or another team. So yeah, in the long term, I think it was a smart move for sure.
And I think it's great for Jimmy Garoppolo too. I mean, obviously he doesn't want to be a backup quarterback again, certainly not to a kid. But he's making $6.5 million guaranteed this year. He's cruising. Time for a Capper's Corner. We're going to look at some of the 2022 over and unders and give you our picks. Starting up, Kenny, the most passing yards this season. The over and under is set to 5,300 and a hook. Both of those odds are at minus 100, whether you take the over or the under. So what do you think? I mean, obviously there's Justin Herbert and Tom Brady at the top at plus 700. Then it kind of goes down. You got Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, whatever. Do you think that this is going over or under? Last year, Tom Brady had over this mark at 5,316. Justin Herbert, under that, he was the only other quarterback to go over 5,000 at 5,014. Do you think we're going over this number or under, and why?
I'm going to say over. And when you said Tom Brady was the only person last year that went over, that's pretty shocking considering there was an extra game added to the schedule.
True. Yeah.
Right? Like, when you look at the last 10 seasons, I think there's only one or two guys who have gone over that number. I think Peyton Manning had 5,400 yards in 2013, and Drew Brees had over 5,400 yards in 2011. But the extra game to the schedule, the way the NFL is trending, right, with the defense, they have less contact on the receivers. Just the rules are trending to more offense every year. So I think we'll see a couple guys go over this number. I think Brady is a great fit for it, obviously with Mike Evans, Julio Jones, and Godwin. Justin Herbert, we all know Herbie fully loaded. You're fully on that bandwagon. And Joe Burrow, like when I was shocked, he wasn't nowhere near that number last year, which is shocking because he had such a good year. So I think like those three guys, even a Patrick Mahomes, I know he loses Cheetah, but it's Patrick Mahomes. So I think a few guys could easily go over that number.
I'm going to go under on this one. I think we're going to, I know you hate me saying this, but I do think we're going to see some regression from Tom Brady. First of all, missing those 11 days in training camp. And then I thought his press conference was like a little bit strange. He apparently has a lot going on in his life right now. His face looks a little bit different, although I will say he still looks very attractive. But, the O-line issues kind of worry me about the Buccaneers this season. And when I look at someone like Justin Herbert, for him to have back-to-back 5,000-yard seasons, I do believe, Herbie fully loaded and that he's going to get there. But to have him go another 300 passing yards, it seems like a lot to me. I also really like Joe Burrow, as you said, to have the most passing yards. But for this 5,300 number, I'm going to go under on this one. I don't know if Tom gets there again. I don't know if anybody else gets up there with him. But let's move on and let's talk about the most passing touchdowns next season. The over-under is set to 43 and a half. Tom Brady at the top, of course, plus 500. Then you go down for Mahomes and Stafford, Herbert, Rodgers, Allen, all the bigs in there. And then if you look at last year, Tom Brady had 43 last year. Stafford had 41. Herbert had 38. So what do you think? We going over or under this 43 and a half?
I'm going to go over as well. You touched on Tom, how great he's looking. Tom is one surgery away from being handsome Squidward, right? Like that guy, I don't know what he's doing, but his jawline is more chiseled every year. It's looking crazy. But
Yeah, yeah, I think he's got some cheek filler too because his cheeks are lifting a little bit. Just as you know, as a girl
yeah,
that knows a little bit something about that.
yeah. As a guy, I think he's starting to look a little weird to me. But that's neither here nor there. He's going to be on the
Yeah.
field. He's going to be tossing the pigskin all around. He's got Mike Evans and Julio Jones in the red zone. How does he not go over this number? And yeah, 43. I think Tom's going for 50 this year. You know, I've said it a few times. I think he's going to put in one of the best seasons we've ever seen Tom Brady have, and I'm standing by that. I don't think he retired and unretired just for the heck of it. I think he's coming back. He means business. He has Julio Jones. Katie, Julio Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I hear you. Again, I think there's going to be some regression with Tom Brady. He was at 43 last year. I don't know if he gets that. Stafford, I've got a lot of questions marks about Stafford and the Rams this year. Cooper Kupp, obviously his favorite receiver, and that's going to get a lot of those catches. But he's got the elbow thing. They held him out for a while, and I don't know. The fight at the practice, the joint practice they had with the Bengals, they said they're going to discipline Aaron Donald on their own. I don't really know what that looks like, but I feel like it might be hard for the returning champs this next year. But I do like Herbert. And I know I said that I didn't think he was going to get over on the passing yards, but I do like him to get more touchdowns this year. He had 38 last year. He's got the same receiving core returning Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Joshua Palmer. And he's got Austin Eckler, and Austin Eckler can carry the football and also run routes. So with all of those players, they made up for 30 of Herbert's 38 touchdowns through the air last year. I think he's going to get past this mark this year. So I like Herbert to get this, and I like this to go over as well. So let's move on to the most rushing yards in 2022. Over and under set to 1,675 and a half. Odds for this are at minus 110. Well, guess who's at the top? Jonathan Taylor, plus 400. Then you got King Henry, plus 650. Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Antonio Gibson. The list goes on. Leaders for last year. Jonathan Taylor, well over this mark, 1,811. Next was Nick Chubb at 1,259. Do you think we're going over or under this mark, 1,675 and a hook?
I would say over.
Yeah.
I think Jonathan Taylor, is poised to have another big year. Derrick Henry, he's coming back. He's healthy. He could easily have another 2,000 yard season. So when you put it at 1,600, I like the over here a lot.
I like the over here a lot too. And it seems like a no-brainer for Jonathan Taylor to get this. He was well over this last year. I know a lot of people think with Matt Ryan that maybe he's not going to get as many touches this year, but Matt Ryan himself said that there's no bigger proponent of the run game than himself. And he's fired up to play with someone like Jonathan Taylor. And if you look at maybe why you don't put Matt Ryan with running backs, Atlanta ranked 31st in the NFL when it came to the running game, and that was all the way since 2018. He's never really had someone like Jonathan Taylor before. I definitely still think he's going to get utilized. I also like a little dark horse here, and I talked about it earlier in an episode. I kind of like Nick Chubb here to have a really big year. They've got Brissett because we know Deshaun Watson is going to be out for a very long time, most of the season. They have a good defense. They could take care of the ball. I don't think they're going to put a lot of pressure on the offense and on Brissett, so I think they're going to be running the ball a lot more. So look for Nick Chubb to have a big season.
That's a good one. And also Dalvin Cook. I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on him. Yeah. That offense with Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Thielen, there's a lot of weapons on that offense that can, take a couple guys out of the box and open up some running lanes for Dalvin Cook. He's a sneaky pick. I think, was he like plus 1,000 to lead the NFL in rushing? So
Yeah, he's a sneaky pick. I agree with you on that one. I mean, I think a lot of these running backs, Derrick Henry, as you touched on, is going to be a good one. Joe Mixon. So we'll have to see. But I think we're both in agreement. We are going over on this one. So let's talk about most rushing touchdowns. This over and under is set to 16.5. Odds are minus 110 on Caesar Sportsbook. Again, Jonathan Taylor leading the pack at plus 500, followed by King Henry, Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb. Same characters that we just talked about, although we got Najee Harris also up in this mix. What do you think?
I'm going to say over just because of how impressive Jonathan Taylor was last year. But when I'm listening to you and me talk, when I'm reading up on, the Jonathan Taylor hype, just brings me back to the days I used to play a lot of fantasy football. And there's always that one guy. He's always, talked about. Everyone is kind of that consensus number one pick. And then for whatever reason, there's always some reason that guy busts. And that kind of worries me about Jonathan Taylor, that there's so much hype around him and he
Mm,
looked so good last year that can he
yeah.
repeat it? I'm willing to say yes, but it does worry me. It's in the back of my head a little bit.
I'm going to say yes too, and I totally agree with you. It's like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, but we've been waiting for the other shoe to drop for Brady for a long time. So it is possible that someone could just be good year after year. It is hard to have back-to-back campaigns like that, but he does have the freshest legs. He's the youngest out of all of the running backs. He's only 23 years old, so he definitely has that going for him with this. He had 18 last year. James Conner had 15, so I am in agreement with you about going over here. Now let's talk the most receiving yards next season. This over and under set to 1,700 and a half. Odds for this are at minus 110. You got Justin Jefferson, who was the belle of the ball this year and everybody's favorite, plus 800. Then you got Cooper Kupp, who was incredible last season. Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase. All of your favorites are on there. Cooper Kupp had 1,947 last year. Jefferson, 1,616. We're trying to get over 1,700. What do you think here?
I'm going to say over. Again, just the way the game is trending, there's more offense every single year. You got guys like Justin Jefferson, who I don't think he's going to lead the NFL in receiving yards this year. I know there's a lot of hype about him. He's talking a big game. Can he back it up? We'll see this year. I like Jamar Chase. The value on him is incredible. The connection, the LSU connection with him and Joe Burrow. We saw what it was in college. A lot of people wrote him off. Last year, what were they saying? Jamar Chase, the size of the football, it's throwing him off. He can't catch it. And look what he did last year. He came out and he just shut us all up. So I think Jamar Chase is poised to have another big year this year with Joe Burrow. So yeah, I like Jamar Chase to lead the NFL in receiving. And that Travis Kelce pick, I know I gave that one on here. That one's a sleeper. It's a little bit of a riskier one because a tight end has never done it. But I think Travis Kelce, Jamar Chase, those are my two picks to lead the NFL in receiving. And I think we'll see someone go over that mark.
Well, you talk about small hands. I also think Kenny Pickett, that was the biggest thing out of him in the draft, was the small hands, and he's been killing it so far in the preseason. So I don't know about the small hands, can they catch the ball type of thing. I'm going to agree with you on Travis Kelce as well. He's got to be the favorite target for Mahomes this season. He's a big body in the end zone. All he's got to get is those 5 yards. I think he can definitely just stampede over people, much like Gronk did. So I wouldn't be surprised Kelce as well, certainly with the touchdowns. But for receiving yards, I kind of like Devontae Adams here. And I feel like a lot of people think there's going to be a downgrade now that he's not with Aaron Rodgers anymore. And I would agree to a certain extent. But I do feel like when he was the only receiver that Aaron Rodgers was throwing to, he was limited sometimes to short passes. I feel like in Vegas, they have more receivers. It's going to be much more open. He's going to get more of those long ball opportunities. So I think that Devontae Adams is a good one for this too. But I also like the over.
Yeah, the Devontae Adams ones is sneaky, especially they got Hunter Renfrow, right? Darren Waller. There's a lot more weapons on that offense than Green Bay had. I know he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers, but Derek Carr is no slouch, still a very good NFL quarterback. So when you have, a Darren Waller and a Hunter Renfrow, we saw in Green Bay, there would be times, Adams would see 2-3 defenders covering him. So you won't be able to do that this year. So we're going to see what he does.
Yeah, exactly. He's not going to be able to be doubled and triple teams. He's not going to get those quick 5 and outs because there's other people to throw to. So agree. So let's look at the touchdowns next season. This is at 15.5. You and I both kind of like Kelce for this one. Odds, of course, minus 110. You got Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans. And we got Kelce at plus 800, which seems to be both of us are relying on that one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, how could you not take Travis Kelce here, right? The Chiefs are not just going to magically fall off a cliff. Patrick Mahomes is not going to go from being, the number 1-2 quarterback in the NFL to a bum in the league. It's just not going to happen. They have Andy Reid, offensive guru at the coach. They're going to figure it out. Travis Kelce, in my opinion, the best tight end in the league. He's a huge body, like you just touched on, right? Patrick Mahomes is going to find him in the end zone. So Travis Kelce, I would not be shocked one bit if he led the NFL in receiving touchdowns this year. Another one I like is Mark Andrews on the Baltimore Ravens. The receiving corps is in shambles. Lamar Jackson, another guy, he's got to throw the ball somewhere. Mark Andrews, great year last year. I think he can easily run it back this year.
I agree with you. Obviously, totally aligned when it comes to Kelce. And we're looking to get over just 15.5. Well, it's like Cooper Kupp had 16 last year. Mike Evans had 14. Jamar Chase had 13. Metcalf had 12. I think Metcalf, unfortunately, will probably go down a little bit this year. Jamar Chase, everyone expecting him to have a big year. I think multiple of these guys could get over this mark. So over 15.5 all day, -110. Caesars Sportsbook. Now, for one of my favorite ones, the most interceptions, the over and under is set to 8.5, -110 as well. Pretty even odds here. You got Trayvon Diggs, he had 11 last year. J.C. Jackson had 8 last year. What do you think? 8 players actually tied with 5 last year. Do you think we're going over this mark of 8.5?
I'm going to go under. I know Diggs hit it last year with the 11, but I feel like that was a little bit of fluke. I think he's going to regress. I don't think he's going to be that ball hawk that everyone thought he was last year. We already see he's getting burned in training camp. It seems like almost every day at this point. He gave up a ton of yards last year, and people would just kind of say, but he gets the pick sixes and the interceptions. It's all right. I don't think he's going to do that this year. I think the Cowboys defense takes a big step back. So 8.5, it's a lot of interceptions. I'm going to go under there.
Yep, I'm in agreement with you on this one as well. I do not see Trayvon Diggs having 11 interceptions like he had last year. I've got so many question marks about the Cowboys right now and how thin they are in multiple areas. So I'm not super high on Dallas. I think that Trayvon Diggs is going to see a little bit of regression. I think even if he gets 5 or 6 interceptions, is going to be great for him. I don't see him hitting 11 again. 8.5 seems very, very high when I look at a lot of these cornerbacks. So I'm going to go under as well. All right, now we're going to get into the most sacks for next season. This over and under is at 16.5. TJ Watt last year, 22.5. Absolutely insane. Robert Quinn, 18.5. Myles Garrett, 16. Nick Bosa coming off of injury, 15.5. What do you think, over or under?
I'm going to say over. TJ Watt is unstoppable. You got the Bosa brothers. There's a couple guys that I think could get close to this number. And I don't think TJ Watt is taking a step back, right? I liked him last year to win Defensive Player of the Year. He cashed that for me. I think that Steelers defense is so much talent there. So I think TJ Watt is poised for another big year. And I think there's a few guys that could get close to this number, honestly.
I agree with you. I think there's a few guys. There's no stopping TJ Watt. I mean, 22.5, like that's just crazy what he did last year. And maybe because I'm a Niners fan, but I am super, super high on Nick Bosa this year. No one got double teamed, and literally no one got double teamed more than Nick Bosa did last year. They got Drake Jackson from USC. He's coming in there. He's going to play kind of the Robin to Nick Bosa's Batman. I don't think he's going to get double teamed as much. And his dad came out and said that last year, the fact that he only got 1 vote for Comeback Player of the Year, he felt disrespected. He took it personal. He's coming out and he's going to have a big, big year. I think he's going to have a monster. I don't know that he gets as much as TJ Watt does, but he's going for Defensive Player of the Year. So watch out for Nick Bosa. And I think several of these guys, Micah Parson could go over, Myles Garrett could go over. I think multiple guys are going to get a lot of sacks this year, especially because there's some issues on O-lines coming up this season.
Yeah, I think TJ Watt, I mean, maybe I could be wrong here, but I think he missed a game or 2 last year as well, and he still hit the 22.5 sacks.
He's a beast.
So. Yeah,
it's unbelievable. I mean, the Watt brothers in general are just crazy, but yeah, TJ has been out of this world. All right, let's look at the longest field goal made, over under 63.5. Odds are -110. Justin Tucker got this last year, longest field goal, 66 yards. Then Matt Prater, 62 yards. What do you think here?
The fact that this is even a question is nuts, because I remember growing up, like the thought of attempting a 60, 65-yard field goal in the NFL was just ludicrous, right? They would never even attempt it. And then you got Justin Tucker hitting that 66-yarder. What was that? That was the game winner against Detroit too, I think, right? Last year. I'm gonna say under here.
I'm going to say under as well. I mean, the thing is, what is it? Death taxes and Justin Tucker field goals. So you knew he was going to make that one, but I don't know that he's going to be in that position again. That's really, really long. So the probability of that happening seems slim to none. So I am agreeing with you and going under. All right, it's time for Mox Locks. Kenny and I are going to give you our best bets for the MLB slate tonight and Week 1 college football. I will start things off. I am looking at Hendon Hooker over 2.5 passing touchdowns. It's at -137 on Caesar Sportsbook. The Ball State Cardinals are heading to Tennessee to take on the Volunteers as massive underdogs. Interesting line movement here. One of the 4 biggest spread shifts. According to Caesars, the spread opened up at 28 and increased by an entire touchdown, favoring Tennessee at -35. This is going to be a shootout. Who knows what we're going to get from either of these defenses, but we do know that the Volunteers are very good offensively, and they're going to put up a lot of numbers. I don't think that Hooker is going to have any problem getting up against this Ball State defense, so I'm going to take him to have over 2.5 passing touchdowns. He's already generating some dark horse Heisman Trophy buzz, so give me over the 2.5 for Hooker on his passing touchdowns. What do you think, Kenny? You got any CFB plays for us?
Yes, so I'm looking at its matchup on Saturday. We got the number 7 Utah team heading to Florida to take on the Gators. I love the Florida Gators here. They're getting 3 points at home. This is a short line where, any casual bettor is looking at saying, oh, the number 7 team in the country, only 3-point favorites. Must be an easy win. But not so fast. The Florida Gators have Anthony Richardson, one of the players I like to potentially win the Heisman Trophy this year. An absolute stud, 6'4", 240, runs a 4.4 40 at the quarterback position. He can run the ball, he can throw the ball, he's going to be all over the field. So I'm looking for him to have a huge game on Saturday and propel the Gators to get the victory.
Good one. Okay, next up, I'm looking at Penn State. I'm taking a -3.5 versus Purdue. Odds are -105 on Caesars. The Nittany Lions have won 9 in a row against the Boilermakers. They're also 10-4-1 against the spread in the past 15 meetings with Purdue. I will say, the Boilermakers were the most successful underdogs last season against the spread with a record of 20-8. Odds makers are also giving Purdue a lot of credit here. The last matchup in 2019, Penn State was 28.5 favorites. Now, of course, just 3.5. Defensively, Penn State should have the edge here, particularly that front 7. They were number 3 in the conference and 6th in the nation on defense last year, allowing just 17.3 points per game. So I'm definitely going with Penn State here. I think they get the win. I think they continue. I think they've beat them since 2004. So that's going to continue happening here. But I will say, it is worth it. If you do think that Purdue can pull an upset this week, you might want to jump on them to win the Big Ten West. They've got an early schedule coming up. It could be a sneaky good futures bet. However, I do think that Penn State gets the win here, -3.5. What's your next bet, Kenny?
So I'm looking at Alex Verdugo over 1.5 bases. It's currently +113 on Caesar Sportsbook. He has a 14 run value against four-seam fastballs, which is Joe Ryan's number 1 pitch. Verdugo's batting .370 against four-seam fastballs, which Joe Ryan throws 60% of the time. So Alex Verdugo, the Red Sox, they've been hot. They haven't been able to get the wins. They've been getting on base, haven't been able to capitalize. I think the offense is going to continue to roll, and Alex Verdugo over 1.5 bases.
All right, you love to see it. Just to recap, I'm taking Hendon Hooker over 2.5 passing touchdowns for Tennessee. This is at -137. I'm also going to take Penn State -3.5. This is at -105. Kenny looking at Florida +3, taking the underdogs here. That's at -115. And Alex Verdugo over 1.5 bases at plus money. He's taking that at +113. This has been Moxie Bets presented by Caesar Sportsbook. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you follow us on social at Moxie Bets, and we'll see you Friday.